And our speaker tonight, from what I understand, weathered 18 inches of snow, a 20-car pileup on the highway, a rock slide that blocked another road, and was still able to get here to give her talk today. Okay. Our speaker tonight is a undergrad at UC in geology. The students do collect and study areas outside the Cincinnati area. As was stated earlier, they were in Utah. But actually, last summer, she spent part of that summer in Mongolia, which was made famous years ago by Chapman and I guess they had mules and horses and camels, mostly camels that they went collecting with. I don't think you collected on camels this year. Not this time, no. Okay? But Sarah Oser is going to tell us about her trip to Mongolia last summer. Sarah?
Hello and welcome. It was an immense privilege to work in Mongolia over the summer. And this talk is kind of split in two. The first half is about kind of the cultural experience and observations, and the second half is an overview of the project we're working on for a senior physics project. Okay, so Mongolia is sandwiched between the two superpowers of Russia and China. And during various periods in its history, it's kind of been under the governmental influence. But in the 1990s, they gained kind of democratic independence. And you kind of see that they've got this kind of Russian industrialism built into their cities, but they still maintain their own nomadic culture throughout. And they've got this encroaching westernization being incorporated in seamlessly as well, which is really, really fascinating. Roy Chapman Andrews made Mongolia pretty famous during the 1920s, during his Central Asiatic expedition. He found many spectacular dinosaurs in the Mesozoic of Mongolia, the Protoceratops and the Velociraptor. But the Paleozoic has much to offer as well, and that's basically where I focused on. We worked in the Shinjinsk region in southern Mongolia, and we worked mainly in the upper Ordovician of the Gashinovo and Dargai formations, which is correlated to the upper Ordovician here in the Cincinnati that we have right outside the door. Just a quick introduction to the team. We had 8 American students from all over the U.S. Travel to Mongolia. We had 4 Mongolian students, Mabu, Badzaral, or Mr. Bad, Oinga, and Bilgun, or just Bill. And we were paired with a Mongolian student and went out into the field and worked on projects of our own device. We had 3 professors come out with us and kind of rotate around the groups and help us with logistics, and they can help determine interpretations and stuff. We had Dr. Paul Myro, who was an expert musician, Dr. Constance Soja kind of helped lead the expedition out, and Dr. Jeff Ober also helped a lot with this interpretation and getting everything done. And this is Bob. We ate Bob. This is Professor Minjin. And he was pretty awesome. He took the time to introduce us not only to geology, but the culture as well. He went out of his way to make sure we got kind of the full Mongolian experience. And he's the Paleozoic geologist for Mongolia. So we kind of made his plate full. But he took the time out of the summer to show us around. So culturally, Mongolia is kind of split into 2 regimes. It's got 3 million people, and half of which live in the city, the other half out in the Gobi. This is Sukbatar Square. That's where during, I guess, the Soviet era, they used to march in with all their soldiers and missiles and done big displays. But now it's their center of government. That's where the parliament is and the presidential offices and whatnot. And then in stark contrast to the city, you have a typical residence in the Gobi. Outside of Ulaanbaatar, there really isn't so much land ownership. as it is. Certain families have their certain areas where they'll set up camp, but mostly out in the southern Gobi, wherever you find a well and set up your ger is where you live for however long you want to. And they basically make a living off of herding goats and horses and whatnot. And you just kind of see the seamlessness with which they incorporate kind of modern technology. You've got as many people riding around on horses as they do motorcycles out across the desert. You'll see in the corner there's a solar panel, which they use to watch TV. They have a couple news channels and like 2 MTV channels that they have. And you can see anywhere in the Gobi. Outside of Ulaanbaatar, the roads are not paved. They're working on it, but right now this is kind of anastamosing dirt paths, and this is like a main transit across Mongolia. And you see these huge, essentially semi-trucks full of sheep just barreling down, and the drivers will wait to the last second to split off, because you can't really drive outside of it because it's all grass and mud. And these are ovus. Most of Mongolia is Tibetan Buddhism that came in. And these are kind of like shrines for good luck to travelers. And they're anywhere from elaborate shrines of Buddha and prayer wheels to piles of rocks. And what's traditional is you stop, you walk around it 3 times clockwise, throwing rocks or food or money or these blue ribbons that they have on there. But if you're in a hurry, you can just honk 3 times as you drive. We took Russian vehicles out, and old Russian military transport vehicles and the civilian vehicles out, because if they break down, you can literally tape them back together and keep going. If you've got a newer vehicle with all the fancy electronics, they get kind of shake, rattle, and roll, and then dusty, as when you're stuck with broken circuit boards and whatnot. Which we're quite thankful for, because our drivers are able to kind of maverick our truck together every day to get it running again. And then even breaking down wasn't so bad, because in the face of calamity, you can discover some cool things. Namely that if you get stuck in a town, you will surely find 3 things: chocolate, of some kind, Coca-Cola, and believe it or not, ice cream. We broke down in front of this lady's house / store, and in her front yard she had a freezer full of ice cream bars. And we just weren't sure what to make of this at first. We were stuck in the desert for 2 days in a car, and all of a sudden, boom, ice cream. But we learned something very quickly, is that you have to learn a few words in the language of wherever you're going. For instance, this is chocolate, which is chocolate. A safe bet for ice cream bars. This, however, you should burn into your memory and remember in case you're ever in Mongolia, and avoid this like the plague. This is arak, which is fermented mare's milk flavored ice cream. It doesn't matter how cold the ice cream is and how hot the day is, you will not finish that bar. That's my friend Jenny found out. So this is our base camp. We had our own gear out in the desert. And so we're kind of used for eating, just for hanging out. We see a pile of saddlebags. Kind of our social area. Our tents were scattered around the landscape wherever we saw fit. Gears themselves are constructed with like lattice work that puts together, and it's covered with felt on the outside and like a white sheet at the top. And it's surprisingly, it's really cool in the summer, and it's very warm in the winter because they have stoves inside. And you never realize how many shades of brown there are until you go to the Gobi. And as a result, anything that can be decorated, like the door and all the wooden slats, are very, very